welcome to another conversation on black hair. Today, I am joined by who is this? We got Mrs. iPhone 10s Max with us to talk about some black hair. Let's get it. How you doing today, Mrs. iPhone 10s Max?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Word. That is what's up. Nah, for real though, her name is Eden. This is my sister. Um, I reached out to her earlier in the week and was like, yo, how would you feel about participating in a conversation with us? She was tuning in on Tuesday when we had our bigger conversation. It was mostly a bunch of folks with locks. And she was actually one of the first people that I saw that was like, yo, maybe, I don't know, address hairstyles other than locks. And, like I told her, our goal wasn't to just have like this whole Lock Nation conversation, just like my goal wasn't to rhyme just now. I just can't help it. Bars. Um, but that's just what happened. And so I asked her if she would join. She said yes. And so now here we are. So thank you for joining, Eden. We appreciate you coming up here and spending some time with us, sharing some perspective, man, because that's what it's all about. Just learning from each other and growing. For those of you who don't know, her hair is wrapped. My hair is wrapped. I was going to unwrap mine until I saw hers wrapped, and I was like, "Yo, maybe we could, do a little rap session." I ain't a rapper, but do a little something, something. So, uh, see, this is
You're
what happened
embarrassed.
when Dom's not here. I'm out of control. Okay, so um, we're just gonna kick it off the same way we did with the other conversation, talking about your feelings on your hair. How do you feel about your hair? Good, bad, ugly. I hate it. I love it. It's the source of my strength. It's what I mean. Like, how do you? Well, you thought I was about to drop that Donnie McClurkin. Okay, let me stop. Answer the question, ma'am. How do you feel about your hair?
Honestly, I love it now, but it wasn't always this way. Like watching from Tuesday, I was so amazed that Petronil had felt so strongly, like positive feelings about him and his hair. That was amazing to hear, but it hasn't been this way for
Yeah.
very long, I would say.
How long has it been this way?
Well, by that, I specifically mean I've loved my hair for maybe the last 6, 7 years.
Okay. It's so interesting because that's kind of the time frame that I fall into, and if I remember correctly, that's like the time frame that Dom falls into, and then Inquinet that was up there, that was about the same time frame. I wonder what was going on 6, 7 years ago that just kind of like, I don't know, made black people feel like being blackety black, as the
I
song
mean, I can
says.
give you some insights to some of the things that were going on.
Please, and I don't want to get too far from the hair, but I mean, it just seems like there was something happening in that time. Yeah.
In that time frame, it was, I believe, and I know that I'm correct, about 7 years ago, that's when Trayvon Martin was killed. And I think people our age, a little bit older and a little bit younger, got the opportunity to see that. Um, very, very live and real. And it just showed us that you're not allowed to be a certain type of Black person. And by a certain type, I mean any type of Black person to be treated freely um, in almost any situation, just like walking home with some Skittles. And it translated into other areas of our life. Like what Black people do, we're resilient as a whole, even the ones that don't want to be, we are. And we turn like hurt and trauma and try to make that into something great. So
Yeah.
seeing that horrible moment turned us into how can I get in touch with my Blackness more, and how can
Yeah.
I appreciate and love my brothers and sisters more. And I think that helped me with my hair. However, it comes out, but that's definitely something that
No, I definitely
brought
feel
us
that
here.
because when you said 6, 7 years ago. And then
Hmm.
I was talking about me and Dom, and when I didn't plan on asking what happened until it hit me like about 6, 7 years ago, 2014, and
Yeah.
and I remember like it was yesterday. That was like when Mike Brown was murdered, and I think that I think that all of the
Same
different
year.
I think that it has a lot going on. A lot attached to it as far as the connection and the relationship to other events in the world. And like you were saying, it was like for a lot of us who because there's if you talk to some of the older people in our family or older black people that you might know, they'd be like, look, man, this has been my experience my whole life. I've never seen anything actually get better as far as race relations go. And so I have no reason to believe that. Where I spent a large portion of my life under, this, the impression, the idea, like things have gotten better and things are going to keep getting better. But as I look back, it's like some things, yeah, they did get better, but in the grand scheme of things, like nothing's really changed, right? And so I feel like that season in life was almost kind of like this catalytic moment where it was like, okay, all the things that we thought had changed haven't changed, and perhaps us getting more connected to our roots and our culture can help us be a part of affecting that change in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, like
Yeah.
getting back to all these different things. So I think that's wow, man. It's crazy how deep
Yeah.
you can get when you're just talking about hair. Like
Yeah.
we didn't really want to talk about Mike Brown. We was just talking hair, but they killed him,
Yeah.
and it did something in you, in me, and in countless black people around the
Yeah.
world. And so dang.
And honestly, I no, not only because that's not true. I mostly know because Trayvon Martin would have been 26 this year, and I am turning 26 this year. So different things just really hit home,
Oh, so
you
you're a
know?
little baby. Turning.
Yes.
Yes, I am. You know this. Okay, you're right. So we kind of covered it, but I did want to touch on like maybe go a little bit more in depth into the process and what it was like for you learning to appreciate your hair. Maybe coming from the place of, all right, this is what it was like for me when I wasn't even thinking about loving my hair or hating my hair. It was just whatever. And then this is when I got to the place where I was like, yo, I hate my hair. If you got to that place, and then I got to this place where it's like, okay, I love it. Just whichever stages you went through, kind of touch on those leading up to I love my hair and it is what it is.
Okay. So majority of well, you know this, but I guess the viewers don't. We grew up in a very white area. That's just the easiest way to say it. So when you're not just conditioned to and socialized into believing that straight hair or more European looking features
Ooh,
are the norm, that's the standard for you, you want to be that, or you want to have some of that. I'm thankful every day that I never wanted to actually be white. Um, and I have loved my black skin. But the hair aspect, yeah, it was more so out of laziness that I didn't like doing my hair because it is a lot of work. Um, it's
child.
a lot of work. No matter how you have your black hair in a protective style, out, locked, whatever you choose, it's work. Um, but like I was saying, a couple years ago when I really started loving it, what really led to that moment is getting more in touch and in tune with my blackness. And for me, that was really just taking my braids out, taking my extensions out, and wearing my hair out natural. It didn't last long, but it's almost like a garden. So when you're planting it and you're weeding and you're tending to your garden, you kind of like love what you're cultivating. And that's really is for me and my black hair. So,
Word, I feel that, and like you said, I do know from the same area, it is predominantly white,
mhm.
and you're conditioned and socialized into that. And that's kind of something that I was touching on the other day when I was talking about the faux hawk that I did. And I don't
Yeah.
think that, like, when I had it put in my hair, I was actively thinking, man, I want to do something that, like, looks like white people can do it. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just what happened, and I'm able to look back now and recognize that, I don't know, maybe if I was a little bit more in touch, I don't think that I would have done that. I mean, I am like wild and kind of extra, and I do things that are just out there, so maybe I would have, but I don't know. It's really interesting to see the correlation in the culture, and that's, a huge part of what we were talking about, like the culture
Mhm.
behind your hair, and then the cultures that exist in every people group and ethnic group, and all of those different things, like the cultures, the
Mhm.
subcultures, the subcultures. Because it's like you got black people, and you got black people from America, and you got black people from America on the East Coast, black people from America on the East Coast up north, because the folks up in New York is different from the folks
It's
down in
not
Georgia.
the same
Yeah, it's not the same. It's like
at all.
it's coming to understand all of these different cultures, and I think one of the things for us was like there's a lot of culture. There's the North, there's the South, there's the islands, and so it's like where do we fit in? And then also, I think another thing that kind of impacted perhaps maybe our outlook on, not just our outlook on life, but also our hair, is the fact that we had white people in the house with us growing up. So like we had all of these different
Yeah.
cultures at play, maybe at war, not necessarily, but definitely at play in things like our black hair, and learning to love it and appreciate it, and all of that. And so yeah, that's really interesting. So as Dom said the other day, we're gonna get to the nitty gritty now. Well, close to the nitty gritty, close to it. I want to talk about the people touching your hair. How do you feel about that? So I don't know if, I would imagine it's been a thing for you, right? But for me, it's always
Yes.
like, like, can I touch it? Like it's like, I don't know, like this precious diamond that you've never seen before. Like, can
Yeah.
I touch it? How
I
do
mean,
you
I
feel
do have
about that?
a short story on the last time that it happened. I was
Did you
out
get
in
permission?
Fredericksburg pre-corona.
Okay.
What?
I was asking if you gave permission for your hair to be touched.
When you ask the question, how do you feel about people touching your hair? Do you like naturally assume someone's going to ask permission if they feel entitled to even reach their hand out to, like, come on.
That's facts. Okay, go ahead.
These are
So
the
you're
people that we're dealing with.
so you're out in Fredericksburg pre-corona.
Yes, at a bar, because it was okay before corona came. And this Caucasian lady that I had never seen in my life before, at least I don't think. I had my hair out, blown out, and it was very voluminous and big, and it wasn't curly, which usually Caucasian people like to try to touch for whatever reason. And she was like, "Oh, your hair's so pretty." And it wasn't me that stopped her. It was a very good friend of mine. She was like, don't touch her hair." And the lady was like, "Oh, I'm not even gonna touch it." And then she walked by me and then she touched my hair.
Wow. Wow.
Right. Yeah. Um, there was a little verbal altercation when that occurred, but thankfully the bar that I was at, I knew the bouncer and the bartender and they kicked her out. So that was her saving grace, my saving grace. But yeah, they do it. They do
Yo,
it. That was the
they
most recent time, but they do it.
they do. Me personally, it's probably been a while since somebody has tried to or asked to, and I think a lot of it has to do with being in Corona. Like prior to Corona, I was rocking a fro. I started locking up somewhere in Corona, and it's like people have seen it, and I can tell that they want to ask to touch it sometimes, but you don't know how anybody feels about Corona. It's like, oh, so, but one of the things that I've really experienced more recently in like recent years, and it's something that I wasn't prepared for with becoming a father, is like people wanting to touch my son's hair, and I'm like, no. They're like, oh my god, because and I didn't think about it until you were talking about the curly hair, because his hair is all curly,
Hmm.
and they're like, can I touch it? Like, no, you like no. Why is
Yeah.
that even a question? And it's so funny because like as I'm saying, why is that even a question? It makes me think of my friend Courtney, who loves to call white people out on their privilege and their racism and all that other stuff.
Hmm.
And
Shout out
honestly,
to Courtney.
honestly, I wonder if there's a privilege in there that makes you feel like that's even a legitimate question to ask, right? Because I've like that's you know what I mean. It's like, can I touch it? Like, where does that come
But
from?
that's what I was saying. When you feel entitled to the world, basically, you don't have boundaries. You were never taught boundaries. Again, it goes back to being socialized into racism and being deemed like, oh, I'm white. I can do a lot of things and get away with it. So why not something so small? Small to them, large to us. And that's
Yeah,
when it comes to gaslighting and telling you, oh, you're making mountains out of molehills.
yeah.
So
You
I
know,
don't question why people feel entitled to things, or have the audacity, because they often do without provocation.
when you when you were talking about like being and feeling entitled and stuff like that, it made me think of the um the intro to I forget the Viva La Bam. I was like, what will he do next? And all I could think was like, what will white people do next? Whatever. And I was like, whoa, like that's crazy. But so and this is very similar to the last question.
Hmm.
But does the race matter? Does the culture of the people matter? Like, and how, like, why does it matter if it does matter, or why not? You know, like, how much does it matter? Because I think that I can instant, like, off the top of my head, I could probably think of
Hmm.
like 10 white people who would probably tell you that it's racist to say that it's okay for a black person to ask, but not okay for a white person to ask.
Well, I'm just go ahead and say this off the top. I need everybody watching to know that Black people can't be racist. So that's that. But your your last question. Oh, looks like it cut out.
No, you're here.
Hello? Oh, okay, sorry. Your last statement, not question, when you were talking about your son's hair being curly,
Yeah.
I am a preschool teacher, so usually 4 or 5 year olds, I'm teaching them, and
Oh no! It looks like we lost Eden, and that is extra crazy. Oh, pardon me for about 30 seconds. I'm gonna see if I can't get her back, you guys.
I don't know what just happened. Hello? That didn't work. Hello? Oh no, the sound's not working. Fusion.
No,
But I can hear you.
hold on. Yeah, I got all this extra stuff playing. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay, so you were saying
Um,
before your connection so rudely dropped you from us.
yeah, that was truly disrespectful.
Extra disrespect.
Very.
I think that the
Like,
internet felt like you were about to be disrespectful and was like, "Yo, let's get her out of here real quick." Before she say something crazy, give her a
honestly.
second to recalibrate.
Well, that
Maybe.
makes me want to be even more disrespectful now. Thanks, Verizon. But no, really, as a preschool teacher, you find yourself, well, I do as a Black woman, find myself listening to kids being kids and saying things that kids would say. And I remember being younger and having little beads in my hair, or ballies, like the little, some of you know, but ballies in my hair. And I don't remember other children asking to touch my hair, or even, again, having the audacity to do it. But these days, I have stopped like other children from touching younger Black girls or mixed girls, or even just girls, other children with hair that was more desirable in the moment to other kids, um, I find that like telling them, hey, they don't have to touch your hair. Please tell other people no. It's almost like their parents don't tell them, hey, that's not okay to put your hands in someone else's hair, even if you ask and they say no, like you have to not. I don't know. Maybe a portion of that is teaching your children consent.
It's like
Yeah,
I, you've made about 15 comments that venture into like 15 other conversations that we plan on
yeah.
having. It's
Well, that's
like,
what I'm here for.
hey, bring them out, bring them out. All right, so
Yeah.
the culture definitely matters. Is
Oh,
okay.
100%. 100%. The yeah, hmm. I wouldn't say the culture matters more than the race, but it is they're both like at a 9.5 of what you're not gonna do. Um, they truly are.
30,000 memes just flashed through my mind. Like, see what you not gonna do. Like,
Yeah,
all
it
right,
is.
so
And I remember oh,
go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead. No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Just piggybacking off of one of the scenarios that was played out. I don't remember the lady's name, but the lady with the locks on your last "Can I Touch" segment. She was saying she was in Guam, so another country, and someone just started touching her child or grabbed her child, and she
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, I want to be culturally respectful and all of this." And my first brain was like, "There's black people on every continent, and by black I mean darker skinned people in Asia, and by Asia I mean like Serbia, Nepal, Japan, the Philippines, Guam. Like there are black people everywhere. There's personal space everywhere, every culture. And
okay.
I feel like black people, we make a lot of excuses as to why other races and
Why
cultures
we
do
let other
things and
people
don't.
do
We
things.
justify other people treating us not good. And I won't say crazy because that's not a term I'd like to use, but just not right is what I would call it.
Nah,
Honestly, you touch
it's
my
wild.
baby, we're fighting, but I don't
something,
want it.
something along those lines is probably going down, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's like yeah, it's interesting, and one of the things that I think about is like, yeah, there are black people in all these different places, and I'm just playing
Hmm.
devil's advocate here, right? Um, but like
Okay.
you said, like the area that we come from, it's predominantly white, so it's very easy to encounter a person who isn't familiar with black people. You
Right.
know what I mean? Just because
Mm,
there's black people there
okay.
doesn't mean that, you know what I mean? And so granted,
Okay, but let me hit you on the other side of that.
okay.
If I haven't ever seen a black person, I'm gonna touch them. That's your first inclination to touch something that you have never seen. No, you feel entitled to something.
Okay.
Therefore, you act on that entitlement.
Sustained.
Sorry.
my bad, dog. I don't want no smoke, okay? Um so education, there's I think that it's silly to say that, or it would be silly to say there's no room for education, right? So I don't even ask if there's room for education because there is room for education. But how do? Oh, you look like there's not room for education. Is there room for education?
I'm
Oh,
letting you
okay,
finish that second part of your question.
okay. How do we go about educating people? Like, what is okay? Better yet, what is our responsibility as Black people to
Hmm.
educate other people about our hair and the do's and don'ts? Like, yo, just because she has her hair wrapped doesn't mean that she's ratchet and on welfare, and just because he has a do rag on doesn't mean he's a gangbanger. Like, dog, he just got cornrows and he want to keep them joints tight. You know what I mean? Or he trying to
Okay.
get the waves spinning. So how do we go about educating people in such a way that A, they learn, B, we're not just repeating ourselves over and over and over again, and C, we're not offending people while we're trying to educate them. Or should we even not have to worry about offending people that we're trying to educate because they're the ones that need the education?
So I'm gonna
Yeah, I did a
let me
lot.
word this the right way. You did a lot, so I'm gonna actually look at the question. Is there room for education? There's always room to give someone more information, someone who's willing to learn more information. Let me
Right.
say that. Um, should everyone know to not touch my hair? Absolutely. I think a lot of people, and since we're more specifically talking about white people this evening, since white people know how to go on TikTok and learn dances and Google what boxer braids are, even though they're actually cornrows, because that's cultural appropriation. Or Jane Fonda braids when they're really Falumi braids. If you can Google that, you should be able to Google why it's not okay, because there are
Mm.
educators. There are people who enjoy breaking it down to someone on a child's level for an adult.
Shout out to
I'm not
Parker
one of
Patterson.
those
She
people.
enjoys breaking it down.
No, I like teaching children.
Yeah, I feel that.
Um, there are people out there for that. There are people who get paid for that. Me educating someone who feels entitled to do what they want with their hands on my body, specifically my hair, that's not my job description. That is someone's job description, but it's not mine. So that's that.
So, okay, so we need to educate. Just everybody isn't called to be an educator. So, what about those of us, like for instance, you, who says, "Yo, like I'm not here to educate you." What is your responsibility in increasing the?
Awareness.
Yeah.
Um, I have a couple links that I could give them real quick. Y'all like to
Okay,
do things
so
in
it's
30
like
seconds or less. Again, there's TikToks.
okay, so you don't. Okay, so it's not. I won't share any information with you. I'm just not going to myself break it down and give you the education. I'll send you a link.
No,
Yeah, or tell you
no,
Google
but
it.
we also, we're talking about this in the year of our Lord. This is 2021, baby. Like this isn't
Not the year of our Lord, though.
like this is 2021.
It's
I
so interesting.
understand that some people don't have access to certain information because it's not in their Magellan textbooks, like the Tulsa race massacre, I should say. That's not there. Rosewood, it's not in there. But um,
Google got it
they
all,
have
baby.
access to that information. It is there
Understood.
and they can find it.
Okay. I feel that. Like the information is there, you can find it. By not finding it, especially living in a day and in an age where these conversations they might be happening less in certain areas than they are in others, but you've heard it at least enough to know that this is something you should do some research on before engaging in that activity or opening your mouth. And
Mm-mm.
so I feel that completely because that's one of the things that I see far too often. Like not specifically about hair, but just in general, people are like, "Yo,
About
like,
someone else's culture.
yeah." When you like, you can Google that. Like,
Hmm.
you could
Like
find a
a
friend.
perfect example. Yeah, a perfect example is when what's the she's married to Kanye West. I forget. I don't even know how I
Kim
forget. It's
Kardashian.
yeah, she came out with the Spanx, or she calls them kimono. Sure, she called them kimono when they first came out. Um, are you Japanese? Do you have any like? Why is that the word that you chose? Yes, it's a play on words, and it's not spelled the same way.
Oh, it's like Kim. Clever.
But why? But why? If you know that your research, you know that it wasn't acceptable. People told you it wasn't acceptable, and you still moved forward.
So what made it
But you waited
appropriation?
for
The fact that she like
kimono. Do you
the
not?
fact that she called it Kim Ono, or the
It,
fact that it
not
was
just that,
Japanese
but
and she
she
didn't give it any
never.
credit.
Not only did she not give it credit, but she didn't give it any type of uh, attention to the fact that, oh, I'm using this word. Not saying like, oh, I'm using this word because I love it so much, blah, blah, blah. She didn't even address the fact that she was using it.
Okay, so it was just kind of like maybe she didn't outright say, "Yeah, this is just something I came up with," but it was
Mhm.
presented in such a way that it was like, "Yeah, this is something I came up with." Now, granted, there's people
Yeah.
who would know, but
But
it doesn't
again, and
matter.
that's
She's
and
Kim
that's the same,
Kardashian West.
that is where you get into appropriation when you decide that, oh, I see something, I like it. That she Christopher Columbus did. Like that's what she did.
Okay, okay. Eden said, "I know we talking black hair, but I want all the smoke." Understood. So I mean, so we're
But
here
she
now.
did.
We want to I want to stay in the vein a little bit of appropriation, and but I want to go a little bit more specifically, not just appropriation. um
Hmm.
One of the things I brought up the other day is like there's this really fine line between appropriation and appreciation, right? And 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 i, and I kind of want to talk about that line that's between appropriation and appreciation. At what point does somebody cross the line of appreciating somebody's hairstyle, like different cultures hair? We're not talking different culture, black culture's hairstyle. At what point does it go from, ooh, I like those locks, or I like those rows, or I like that perm, to I'm trying to take over?
That is a really fine line. Just off the top, it's a super fine line. And I would say it's a fine line because it's really hard to know when someone is appreciating Black culture and not being what I would consider a culture vulture, like the Kardashians and all of the Instagram influencers. Like I was speaking on the braids before, you see something, you like it, you Christopher Columbus it, and you call it boxer braids. But they're really cornrows, or they're really box braids, or they're Senegalese twists, Marley braids. Instead of taking the time to not just acknowledge, hey, I didn't just discover this really cool thing that I like, you're just gonna pretend you made it up.
Oof.
On top of not just pretending you made it up, but giving no background whatsoever.
Yeah. So as you're speaking, one of the things that comes to my mind in as far as the
Hmm.
difference is intentionality, right? Like because it takes that intentionality to say, "Yo, I'm not gonna just," because it's one thing to like come up with a creation that's inspired by another creation, or to even take somebody else's creation and change the name of
Can
it
I
and
can I
get.
interrupt you really quickly?
You
I'm
know
so
what?
sorry.
You can.
So inspired by is oftentimes stealing, and I want to say that to make it very clearly, especially when you're talking about other people's cultures.
Right.
You're inspired by this, but you're 100% copying it, but you put what in it to make it different.
And so
Because
that's
inspiration is in everything.
right, and that's kind of what I'm talking about with the intentionality of it, right? Because
Hmm.
when you're intentional about not appropriating and just appreciating, learning from, growing from, it's like you say, "Yo, that was fire. I like that. You mind if I take it and maybe put my own thing on it?"
Yeah.
And but so in terms of hair, right? How do we do that? Because
Oh, I
again,
don't know. I don't
like
have to appropriate Black culture.
right, but I'm talking about how do we maybe end appropriation or fight towards ending appropriation. You know, it's kind of like being
Stop
anti
stealing.
appropriation. Right, but how do we educate ourselves to the point that we're ready to educate others to the point that they're aware of the fact that
But
what you're
again,
doing is
this
kind of
all
cool, or
comes
it's just
back
a
to
conversation?
having people have access to this information.
Okay, so we shouldn't have to explain it. Like you should
A
be able to
lot of
put it
it
in a way.
shouldn't have to be explained. Absolutely. It's like, why are we telling adults that have been, if I'm telling another 26, 27, 30-year old person, hey, that's not okay, it hasn't been okay the entire time that I've been alive, it makes me uncomfortable, that's offensive. And they keep doing it over and over again, saying, oh, but I really like it so much. Like, are they willing to learn? Again, What I was
Right.
saying is I'm fine sending the links and the information to people who are willing to learn, but if they're not, which is the majority of the people that are appropriating other people's cultures, specifically Black culture, they
Right.
don't care. Just you can see it all over the internet. They'll do some. They made it Bo Derek braids, not Jane Fonda. I misspoke. I said Jane Fonda before when I was speaking of braids.
I don't know
She
who Bo
literally
Derek
had,
is.
wow, okay, that's
I mean, I
interesting.
know who Jane
She's
Fonda is. I don't know who
she's
Bo
a
Derek is.
beautiful woman. She's a Caucasian supermodel from like the 80s, 70s, 80s. And she had some braids into like a crown. And they had beads on them. Like I wore my hair like that when I was a little girl. And
Crazy.
again, people who call cornrows boxer braids are calling those braids, and I don't even know the specific name of the hairstyle, but they call them Bo Derek braids. I'm gonna raise my hand and go ahead and guess the answer to the question. Is Bo Derek the first person that wore those braids? Is her culture made up of people who wore those braids to protect their hair? Why not just, if you can reach back and say, you know what, Bo Derek wore those in the 70s or the 80s, I'm sure Google can let you reach back a little bit further and see maybe they come from a certain tribe.
Right. Okay. And so what you're saying is kind of more along the lines of people need to stop being so naive or ignorant because, like, there's no humanly possible, fathomable way that this person invented this hairstyle in the 80s. Like, it's just not real.
No, I mean, number one, she didn't invent it. That's off the top. But I'm saying that we use the internet for so many things, like this call. How many people are watching this on Facebook? Probably a lot. Probably enough people to go fact check that Bo Derek braids weren't invented by Bo Derek
Right.
or figure out what a Senegalese twist is.
And as a matter of fact, somebody just put in Courtney Patterson just put in the comments that Cicely Tyson was the first person that sported it in all of Hollywood. Period. Who,
Thank you.
so it's like the fact checkers. Know what she be talking about sometimes.
And I appreciate Courtney Patterson for that.
I do too. So, when I guess okay, not I guess appropriation is never okay. Um, are there times when you see white people wearing black hairstyles and it's like, go ahead, get it, or is it always for you? It's just like, nah. I need you to run me them braids, dog. Like,
I
how
mean,
does it
we've
happen for you?
mainly focused on braids and twists. That's been my topic because I feel like as a black woman who has her hair out, and that's a protective style that I usually use. I would say for me, black hairstyles on specifically white people, because that's the majority of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, correct.
I don't think I've seen them wear our ancestors' hairstyles to the point where I'm like, yeah, that's nice.
Oh, okay. So you're always like, I need you to stop.
Uh, More so, not even on any like I'm offended by what you're doing, but like that's not even a good look for you, beloved. Like, cut it out.
Not beloved. Understood. That's wow. She called him beloved. How did you feel about the Adele joint? Was that like? Did you find that problematic, or did you feel like I felt like she crushed them joints? That's how I
I mean,
felt.
I feel like I am not surprised by you feeling that way. Um, I personally, I mean, she was in Jamaica, right? Isn't that what all
I
white women do when they go to Jamaica? They get braids in their hair.
I don't know. I don't know any white women that have been to Jamaica.
I'm
We've had a
Courtney
conversation about
Patterson. Is that what white women do when they go to Jamaica?
it. Courtney, know all the white women that go to Jamaica? All right.
Probably.
So I want to kind of
No, I
close
just
out.
don't think it was good.
I want to close out with this, and I didn't put it in the notes that I sent to you, so I apologize.
Okay.
But you're a grown woman who works, so you'd be able to answer this. Hairstyles in workplace.
Mm,
How does Courtney said yep to your question. um,
thank you.
Jesus. Hairstyles in the workplace, right? One of the
Hmm.
things that we were talking about as we were doing this outline and coming up with the questions is how a lot of times hairstyles that, like, so for instance, like the what do you call them, the box braids, the cornrows, the Senegalese twist, the lot, like all of the different hairstyles that black
Yeah.
people tend to wear. First of all,
Hmm.
I'm sure you've seen the post. I've seen the post too, right? Where it's like, how come when black people do it, it's trashy or ghetto or whatever, but when white people or when Latinas do it, then it's classy, it's spicy, it's sexy, it's all of these different
Hmm.
things, right? But then in the workplace, um, hair discrimination is real, right? I mean, well,
True.
I, so have you ever found yourself being discriminated on in the workplace because of your hair? And not just being discriminated, but have you ever not put in a certain hairstyle because of how you could potentially be received at work or at an interview or in a formal setting?
So I will say, starting off the beginning of the question, I only wear my hair straight to interviews. And that's because, yeah, discrimination is super real, especially for Black women. Like, the Crown Act was only passed last June, like, no, 2 years ago. Yeah, because this is 21, so 2019, which makes hair discrimination illegal, but it's only in like 6 or 7 states out of 50. Out of 50 states, only six of them are like, I'm not going to hire that Black woman if she has her afro out.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild, number one. So, do I find myself put into a situation where I won't wear certain hairstyles to work? Mm, because again, I don't work in corporate America, thankfully. I work in a school setting. I do know that a lot of teachers have really slick mouths, and a lot of my supervisors in the past have had really slick comments to make. But if my hair is out, I always keep my phone right here so I can record them and send it up to HR because that's a settlement. You're not going to talk crazy about my hair. Again, the Crown Act was passed in Virginia, so let's go.
Run me my count. Heard that,
Yeah, but no, yeah, a lot of the things that women, Black women, men, children do to their hair are deemed unprofessional. Like, why can't I wear box braids? Why can't I wear Marley twist? If
yeah,
my friend Rebecca over here, I was just thinking of your wife's name, sorry, comes in with a
okay,
messy bun and it's acceptable. But if I have my hair in a puff, I'm not professional for work.
right. Yeah, and that's something that's I've noticed that, and it's really interesting. Me personally, I don't think I've ever, well, no, outside of the faux hawk that I used to rock, I've never undone a hairstyle for work or anything like that.
Hmm.
But there was this place I used to work, and the guy who he got hired like the same day as I did, black dude, older gentleman. He had locks, and he had been growing them for like 7, 10 years, and
Hmm.
not on some I don't want to look unprofessional type stuff. Well, it's a little bit deeper than that because it was that bit deeper. He shaved them off, and like the first day we're working together, we're talking about it. I don't even know how it came up, but he's telling me how he shaved them off because you know what they say about black dudes with dreads. And that's what he said. He was like, you know what they say about black dudes with dreads, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to have to deal with any of that. Like, I wanted to make sure I got this job. I got kids and mouths to feed, and it was so wild to me that most of the people that I've ever talked to that have locks or had locks, usually they talk about the patience and the discipline that it took to have them, keep them, grow them year after year. And because he needed a job, he was like, "Yo, all of that's dead. I got mouths to feed." And I think that it's crazy that he had to sacrifice his hair to get some security about going in to get a job to feed his family, right? I just think that, I think
Yeah.
that that's
And he
um
still could have not got the job for being black.
easily.
And don't be big too.
And his name was
Don't be
Muhammad.
big. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I was like, yeah, you got in, bro. Like, you got in.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause that was a mm,
Yeah. There's so many other things that I want to say, but I'm not because Dom's going to be having a conversation. And if I'm not mistaken, he's having a conversation tomorrow with, I believe it's somebody who had like, with a white person or a white couple who has adopted a black child, talking about their hair there. So I'm really excited, and there were questions that I wanted to ask you, but I'm like, nah, I'm gonna leave all of that for Dom and his conversation. You got a
okay.
tendency to go off script anyway. Like you
My bad.
colonizer. Yeah, but so we're gonna close. But before I give our the prayer, what I would like to have you do is just give some final thoughts, like we normally do. What do you want? Actually, two sets of final thoughts. Final
Okay.
thoughts for Black people, and then final thoughts for others to take away from this
Mm,
conversation,
okay.
or to just
Final thoughts.
do in response to this conversation.
Okay. In response to this conversation for non-black people, please do your research. No, you cannot touch my hair ever unless you're my life partner. And still then, it's iffy.
Hmm.
But some people just don't like to be touched. But if you know that you believe in consent in every other realm except for when it comes to putting your hands on a black person, like there's something going on with you and you need to get
Mm,
help.
that's good.
To black people and brown people that identify as black, I would just say make sure you're educating your kids, uh, high school and younger, really, about what healthy hair is. There's no such thing as good hair. All hair is good. Just ensure that you're keeping it healthy and you're making positive comments about it.
I thought only white people had good hair.
You know,
I mean,
you know,
that wasn't
you
sarcasm,
you
but it's not
might be onto
entirely
something.
accurate. For a lot of my life, that's what I thought. But that opens the conversation back up, and we're not trying to do all of
Okay, well,
that.
let me just say this one
Go
last
ahead.
thing in response to you. If white people only have good hair, why do they want to have all of the things that we have?
I wish
Hair,
I wish I
lips,
could.
body,
I can't wait till we get to the place where we just putting
like
emojis out there, so I can just like have the
yeah, the look in eyes.
the.
Yeah, I just think it's very interesting that we're still having all of these conversations,
What
and
up,
there is an
G?
entire culture of people who are literally transforming themselves
Yeah,
into replicas of Sarah Bartram. And when my sister or my cousin does it naturally, it's unacceptable.
right. Yeah. Well,
So,
we gonna close out on that. Do your research.
mhm.
Figure out what it is that's in you that makes you feel so entitled to just touch people. Like she said, you need consent for all other things or most other things in life. Why is this any different? I'm gonna close this in some prayer, and then we just gonna rock. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather and have a conversation about black hair, the culture behind it, the appreciation, the love behind it, what it took for us to get to this place of loving our hair, how it correlates to us loving ourselves, our roots, our people. I just pray that you would help us open ourselves up to understand ourselves more, understand each other more, and to just be more respectful of each other and other cultures. And I just pray that this conversation would reach all the places that you've ordained it to reach before we even decided to have it. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
All right, once again, Eden, thank you for joining us. For everybody that's watching or watching later, please go to our page. There's a link for a link tree. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitch and TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. And if I keep going, and I'm gonna do like the old people do and combine two names that don't make sense, like Insta, Google, Snap, Tweet, right? But yeah, go follow us, man. Like our pages, subscribe, turn the notifications on. You don't want to miss when we're going live. We got a lot going on. Like I said earlier, Dom is going to be going live tomorrow. He has a dope conversation on black hair, and then next week we're gonna be talking about Black History Month. A lot of people got a lot of different feelings about it. Ooh, look at that. She's like, I want to be on that one. Like, yeah. So, we appreciate y'all, and y'all stay tuned.